This is the Reviewing Network Live, a weekly stream of consciousness recording session where I sit back with you folks out there, talk about some of the big news stories from the past week, and some other things I found that might be of amusement to you out there. I think you might get a kick out of it. Now, these are more like audio podcasts and are much longer than my usual videos and are also, for the most part, unedited and will contain some foul language. So, if you're easily offended by that, I advise you to maybe step back a bit, maybe go somewhere else. But hey, if you're up to the challenge, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Thanks. And for the 47th time ever, we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Reviewing Network Live, and, God damn it. You know, last week, of course, we had, Donald Trump almost getting killed during one of his rallies, and I thought, you know, last week was a rough start to, it was a rough show to do, because I had to talk about that, because that was the thing that everyone was talking about. But, you know, and I don't usually like to get into politics and all that type of stuff, but I thought this week, okay, the week has gone by, seems like there's nothing really significant happening. I finally get a nice little break from it all and go back to what I wanted to talk about most on this channel, and that's the world of entertainment. Not so much. Not so much. Literally within the last, 2 hours as I'm recording this, I think if you don't know the story already, you'll probably have known about it by this point, the time you're listening to it, but yes, it has finally happened. Joe Biden has officially announced on Sunday that he is leaving the 2024 presidential race. You know, again, I'm going to try to keep this as contained as I can. I'm not going to make this a whole episode in general. I'm just going to talk about it real briefly so we can get to the stuff that you really want to come here for, the reason you clicked on here for. But yeah, it's kind of hard to go with the show here and not talk about what's just transpired here, because honestly, let's be honest, this was building up for a long time now. I mean, even before the debate, which was really where it all started to come crumbling down, but those little bits of signs of that something was not right with this guy whatsoever. And this is coming from somebody who voted for Joe Biden in 2020. I am still a registered Democrat, and I'm not changing my way. I'm not changing in any way, shape, or form to vote for somebody else or vote for somebody outside of my party. I'm definitely not voting for Trump. But let's be honest. If I'm being personal, it was not surprising that this was going to happen. It was really going to be sooner rather than later. This guy was going to have to drop out at some point, because he was just doing these weird little ticks and weird little things where it's just like, what are you doing? It's just like, all Joe Biden really needed to do, if he wanted to secure another re-election campaign, a successful re-election, was to just be who he was in those first 4 years. Be that guy that you were in 2020 when you literally told Donald Trump during a debate to shut up. And it just feels like that guy is not there anymore. I mean, in the last couple of weeks, ever since the debate where he basically screwed himself over, now that's pretty much him coming back to form. But at the same time, it's just like too little, too late. Like, where was all that on that night in late June? Like, that debate really changed the whole complexion of everything. Like, you know, the month of June began with Donald Trump going to jail for paying off a porn star. That's not happening anymore. He was supposed to be sentenced on July 11th. That didn't happen. Like, everything is pretty much worked out in the favor of Donald Trump now going forward ever since that debate. I mean, almost from the get-go. And then it's just amazing that this election has gotten so insane, it's so crazy. And today, like, we knew this was going to happen, but at the same time, it's just a crazy reality now that this is the case here. And I've got the story right here. I'll just run through it real quickly. Joe Biden on Sunday announced that he'll exit the 2024 presidential race. He also said that he is endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris to be the nominee of our party this year, which yeah, makes sense because she's the vice president. But okay. There's really a lot more I could delve into, but I don't want to bore you here. I don't want to waste a lot of my time here on this, because I want to get to the fun stuff here. I wanted to do the complete opposite of last week, but of course, the world doesn't want me to do that apparently and talk about this. But like I said, this really wasn't a surprise. This was going to happen sooner rather than later. Even the biggest diehard Joe Biden fans were just like, okay, dude, you really need to just go take a step back here. And I think the moment that really did it, that really just said that this sucker is over, was not just the debate was one thing. Trump getting shot was another contributing factor, I think, that really led into this. But it really was on Wednesday when it was revealed that Joe Biden was still dealing with COVID, and at that point, I think it was just like, it's kind of like when Tom Snyder talked about how the Tomorrow Show ended with a car getting destroyed. It's just like, this sucker is over, man. Like, this is the end of it all. And it helps that, the people that, and let's be honest, the real reason why Joe Biden probably got out, besides all those contributing factors we mentioned, money. All that money that was going into the Democratic campaign is drying up, because everybody was basically saying, like, Joe Biden needs to drop out. Jeffrey Katzenberg was one of the first people to call out for Joe Biden to step aside. George Clooney called for Joe Biden to step aside. I mean, when you're getting these Hollywood names to come out and say, you got to step down, man, like, this was pretty much a formality that this was going to happen. But now, does Kamala Harris have a chance to beat Trump? Possibly, but at the same time, I really don't think that's the case, man. I just think that what happened last week, whether or not you want to say it was staged or not, which some might say it was, some might say it isn't. I'm not going to go delve into that rabbit hole. I'll let you go online if you really want to delve into that. But I think that moment there pretty much just cemented the obvious that we're going to deal with another Trump presidency. And it's just like, at this point, politics has just really worn me out, and worn a lot of you people out too. It's just like, at this point, I don't care anymore. I just want this to be over with. I just want the next... It's like, at this point, I want Trump to win just because the next because he gets the next 4 years, and then boom, we're done. We can move on to somebody else, even though the party itself is completely screwed. That party is completely screwed up in its own right. What I'm trying to say here is that politics are really screwed up here. Politics have really ruined a lot of people's livelihoods. It's really made a lot of people stressful. Like, nobody wants to get involved in this election. Any sensible person with a brain doesn't want to vote in this election. Even people who wanted to vote from the beginning, who were so excited to vote from the beginning when they got the opportunity to vote when they turned 18, like, even those people are just like, we just want this to be over with, man. And like, we still got 4 more months of this, and who knows how much more the chaos is going to be adding up here. And this is just, this is a... And who knows if even Kamala Harris actually ends up being the pick in general, because there's been a lot of other names mentioned. Gavin Newsom was mentioned, Elizabeth Warren, I think, was mentioned, Gretchen Whitmer. There was another one, Josh Shapiro, the Pennsylvania governor. It's... Who knows if Kamala Harris actually ends up being the one that stands on that stage at the Democratic National Convention next month and actually accepts the nomination. Nobody really knows for certain, and quite frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody else came in to challenge Kamala Harris. I mean, we haven't heard anything yet, because this is still fairly early breaking news as of the last couple of hours, and this is Sunday too. So most of these people aren't even watching TV. They're going outside and enjoying the summer sun. So yeah, it's But yeah, I didn't want to delve into this too much, because, like I said, this show is about entertainment, and I've said before, and I'll say it again, that we only talk about politics on this show or on this channel if we really have to talk about it. And considering what's happened the last 2 weeks with a former president getting nearly assassinated, and then now that Biden is dropping out of the race, yeah, we kind of have to talk about this kind of stuff. So yeah, like I said, I want to that's all I wanted to talk about here. I'm not delving into any more of this. Like last week, I'll shut down the comments, I'll shut down the likes too, so it doesn't get into a political rampage here. But I wanted to cover that because it was literal breaking news in the last couple of hours, and it's a big news story. One of the big news stories of the week in general. So yeah, that's why I decided to delve in on that. But with that said, let's get to the stuff that you're here for, because on this show, what we usually do on this show, as I mentioned in the opening, is that we talk about the biggest news in entertainment, the world of movies, the world of television, etc., etc. And there was a lot of big stories this week. that is in the world of entertainment in general. Plus, there was a lot of interesting stuff I found this week. So yeah, let's step away from the politics. Let's get to the stuff you really came here for, and that is, of course, starting off with the weekend box office. Speaking of things I'd rather not talk about, yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to eat a bowl of steaming crow for what I have to say about the number one movie here, but everything else is kind of where you expect it to be in terms of the top 5 in general. So let's go ahead and get right to it. Let's start with number 5, which is A Quiet Place Day 1, which brought in $6.1 million, bringing its percentage down to 46% from last week. It still brought in over $127.6 million. It's right on the cusp of where A Quiet Place and A Quiet Place Part 2 is. I don't know if it's going to make it to the $160 million I think A Quiet Place is at, but especially now since it's under $6 million, it's getting close to, it's just a little over $6 million in 4 weeks, but it's still a profitable hit regardless of how you look at it. But speaking of profitable hits that are, when you look at it, number 2 from last week, number 4 this week is Longlegs, which actually has a pretty good horror movie drop-off, all things considering, since this movie did not do well with cinema score. Only dropped 47% from last week, which for a horror film, they're usually very front-loaded, but if you get a movie like this that comes around every once in a while that everyone talks about and everyone's got to go see it, this is what happens. $11.7 million after 2 weeks, $44.6 million after 2 weeks, bringing its 2-week gross to $47.3 million. It already made back its budget within the first week, $10 to $16 million, so it's pretty much profit from this point forward. So I'm wondering how far this is going to go, honestly, because of that small drop. I'll probably end up around maybe $70 million, $60-70 million if it continues on this track. And I think that would be their overall highest grossing film, this Neon's company in general. But let me see here. I'm just kind of curious. Where is their studio? I'm looking on Wikipedia right now. So you would think they would make this so easy to find on there, but no, it's not. It's nowhere to be found on there. But let me just go to the Longlegs page. Let's see. And of course, you can't go on to Wikipedia to find out what their films, how much their grossing films are. But let me see. Here we go. The numbers. Parasite is currently at $53.3 million. So it's domestically, so it's gonna make it to that point. It's gonna be their biggest movie of all time. Worldwide gross up to $253 million on Parasite, and the next one is I, Tonya, which is at $53.7 worldwide. So I think that's kind of interesting that Longlegs is just a couple of days away from literally surpassing an Oscar winner for Best Picture as their biggest movie of all time. And maybe this is the beginning of something new for them. Maybe this is what happens to them, like what happened with Saw with Lionsgate. Saw was a big hit and eventually turned that studio around to where they became one of the big major studios out there, but producing blockbuster films instead of just independent movies. So maybe that'll happen with Neon down the road. I don't think that'll happen, but who knows? We'll see what happens there. Number 3, still hanging in there, is Inside Out 2 at $12.8 million, dropping only 35% from last week, closing in on $600 million domestically, $596.3 million. So far, the worldwide gross is up to $1.4 billion. Disney's going to have another big hit with them coming up next week with Deadpool and Wolverine coming out, and that should clean up the box office in general. It's going to be very curious to see if that actually really does anything to the family films in general, but Deadpool and Wolverine's a rated R movie. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see how they handle that. Plus, technically, it is Disney's first official rated R movie because it's a Marvel Studio release. It's not being released under 20th Century Studios or anything, or one of their adult film studios. No, I think it's just being straight released through Disney. So that'll be interesting to see how that pans out in general. If it changes any of the complexions of the kids' movies at the box office, such as the number 2 film, dropping off after 2 weeks now from number 1, Despicable Me 4, which brought in $23.8 million. $259.4 million after 3 weeks. The worldwide gross is up to $574 million worldwide. We talked about it last week, how it became the first animated. This series became the first animated film franchise to gross more than $5 billion at the box office. So needless to say, these movies are cleaning up money, even though they are really chugging along with the ideas that they have here. Yeah, it's kind of in that territory. I'm looking at the movies in general. Well, this has surpassed Despicable Me 3 and the first one, actually, for the second highest grossing film in the series in general. I think Despicable Me 2 is at the high mark at $368 million, which at this point it probably should get to that point. I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't, because there isn't really a whole lot of family film competition, at least for a while now. Not until Harold and the Purple Crayon comes out, which, is that really going to be something that people will want to go out to see in a movie theater? I mean, if you've seen the trailers for it, you know exactly what the hell I'm talking about, because that movie just looks like such an insult to the book in general. I mean, just turning the kid Harold into Zachary Levi's character, into Shazam, pretty much, but not a good Shazam, but not the Shazam that we like from the first movie, the Shazam from Fury of the Gods. I mean, that's literally what it feels like when I look at the trailers for that terrible movie. But knowing my judgment, compared to the #1 movie, Harold and the Purple Crayon may actually be a big hit in the long run. Because the #1 movie this week is a movie I have badmouthed since I first saw the trailers. I've said that this is going to be one of the worst movies of the year, one of the biggest flops of the year. And then the universe once again told me to go F myself, because Twisters is the #1 movie at the box office this weekend. Initial projections had it around $45 to $50 million. But it has made more than that, $80.5 million, right where Oppenheimer made money around this time last year. $80.5 million. Worldwide, it's up to $123.2 million. The budget is $155 to $200 million, so there you go. This is the universe basically telling me that I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, and that this is gonna make money, and this is okay. I should probably say that I don't have any real problems with the people involved in this movie. I don't have any problems with the director, Lee Isaac Chung. I have nothing against the actors in general. I think, if anything, what this movie does is show that Glenn Powell, he really has the potential to become the next big movie star, because you put him in front of anything, he's becoming a big box office draw in general. I mean, he's been in a number of movies that should not become hits whatsoever. And ever since Top Gun Maverick, he's had a couple movies where they didn't make a ton of money. Devotion wasn't a big hit, and Hitman was a hit that was on Netflix. But Anyone But You is the perfect example, a movie where the movie itself was not that great, but people went to go out and see it because you pair him with Sydney Sweeney, and the results speak for themselves. The dude becomes one of the top stars in Hollywood, and this is just an example of his star power really beginning to grow in general. And I think the movie mostly did well because of him in general, and not really much of the film itself, because the film itself, it got a cinema score of A-, which is actually pretty good for this movie. But here's the thing, 78% on Rotten Tomatoes, but I've said it before. I said it with The Flash, which also got really positive reviews. Rotten Tomatoes is a company that's co-owned by Universal and Warner Brothers. So take a guess on what studios put out Twisters. Universal and Warner Brothers. So you can see why I'm a little bit hesitant to really say that this movie is as good as people make it out to be, because I'm one of those people that believes that this movie probably got the benefit of the studio heads playing into some bribing going on the sidelines, because this movie did not look that great to begin with in general. I still don't think it looks that great in general, and maybe it's because I wasn't a big fan of the original Twister as it was already. I really don't like the first Twister, so I had no real intentions on actually seeing this movie in any way, shape, or form. But I will eventually see it down the road. It'll end up being streamed on Peacock or Max for free, and I'll watch it through there, because I don't want to pay money to see this movie in a theater. I really do not. I'm just not ready to give in to the fact that this could actually be a good movie, because I really don't think it is. I really don't think it will be. But then again, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know for certain. But anyway, But anyway, Twisters is #1, and this is really the only weekend it has, because obviously next week it's going to be all about Deadpool and Wolverine. Can it reach that 200+ million threshold that everybody is really projecting this movie to do? I think it's really going to depend on the word of mouth. I mean, the early buzz is that the film the film is really fun in general, but at the same time, we always see those high expectations at the box office, and then all of a sudden you really fall off you don't really, if it doesn't perform as well as you think it should, it just craters right away. I mean, we saw that in May with The Fall Guy. We saw that with Furiosa, Mad Max Saga. So it's really too soon to tell on what's going to actually happen here. I mean, so the projections right now are $200+ million. I think Disney is expecting an opening somewhere between $160 and $165 million, trying to be as conservative as they can with it. But yeah, it's looking like it's going to be a massive hit. So this was the one weekend Twisters honestly had, because next week it's going to be all about Deadpool and Wolverine. So a movie that I am most definitely looking forward to. It's probably the movie I'm most looking forward to for the rest of 2024. So it's a film that I am definitely looking forward to checking out, indeed. So I'll, of course, have a review for that coming up next week. So be on the lookout for that. And so with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the news stories for this week, and there are a lot of them. So our first news story comes from the world of sports. I should say sports media, and I should say Fox Sports Media, and I should say Skip Bayless. If you don't know who Skip Bayless is, this is a guy that, if you've ever watched any of his clips online, you know that he is more prone to being more wrong than right at times. And we'll delve into some of those examples a little bit later on here. But he's in the news because he is apparently set to leave Fox Sports' Undisputed. And I've got the story here from Variety, and it says that looks like there will soon be room for arrangement on Fox Sports' one signature program, Undisputed. Skip Bayless, the longtime sports commentator who left the role of ESPN's Hot Take Showcase First Take in 2016 to co-anchor a similar concept at Fox Sports, is expected to leave the network sometime at the end of the summer. According to a person familiar with the matter, Fox Sports declined to make executives available for comment. The New York Post previously reported Bayless' expected exit. Bayless' departure comes a little more than a year after the exit of co-host Shannon Sharpe, who has since landed the role of all places, at First Take. Undisputed has been facing headwinds since Sharpe's exit. It has coalesced into more of a roundtable program with a less distinctive central personality. Bayless hosts with a rotating group of panelists that typically includes Keyshawn Johnson, Michael Irvin, Richard Sherman, Rachel Nichols, and Paul Pierce. The assemblage has not proven as popular with viewers as the back and forth of Sharpe and Bayless. Bayless has enjoyed a long career in sports TV, as he gained notice by working as a sports columnist for the Dallas Morning News, the Dallas Times-Herald, and the Chicago Tribune. Bayless also found his way to other media, including the Dallas radio station KLIF, ESPN Radio's The Fabulous Sports Babe. In his own bespoke radio program in 1989, he joined ESPN's The Sports Reporters as a panelist, and subsequently worked frequently with popular sports broadcaster Jim Rome. He joined ESPN full-time in 2004, first taking part in a debate segment on the ESPN2 program called Pizza, which eventually became the template for First Take. So yeah, if you've been watching for Undisputed since Shannon Sharpe left, it's been basically a clusterfuck. I mean, this is a show that made its name because of the fact that Skip Bayless was usually fending off against somebody like, I mean, when he was going at it with somebody like Stephen A. Smith or Shannon Sharpe, that's where the fun of watching Skip Bayless was, because 9 times out of 10, he would usually be very, very wrong on his takes. And when you step away from that idea and decide to go to more of a roundtable idea, Skip Bayless went from being somebody who was not afraid to really speak his mind and really get at the person next to him, but now that he had three or more people following him in the process, like, it's been basically become a cluster, to quote another sports media person, a cluster Pharrell, if you will. But yeah, like, but it's fun. It's fun watching Skip Bayless being absolutely 100% wrong on a lot of things, and I actually have a compilation here of some of Skip Bayless's worst takes in general, because, man, when this guy said what he had to say, he was either extremely on the nose or, more than not, 100% wrong. And I've got some of the most notable examples that I'm going to play for you right here. So let's go ahead and take a listen to some of these. If you know Skip Bayless, you know that he has a very much love-hate relationship for LeBron James, and the fact that he loves to talk about how much he hates LeBron James, and he completely hates the idea of him being considered better than Michael Jordan as the best basketball player of all time, which that's the one thing I will agree with him on. I'm sorry. I like LeBron James, but I'm sorry. Michael Jordan is still the best basketball player of all time, but, you know, he has so much haterade for LeBron James. It's almost kind of unusually charming to him. This was him after Christmas Day when the Cavs beat the Warriors, and I guess they were talking about LeBron James being in the MVP category. This was him with Shannon Sharp.
You are disqualified now from talking about LeBron James as MVP, because after what I saw yesterday, nobody who could be in the MVP conversation can get away with just taking a back seat in the fourth quarter to the other guy on his team. The MVP of the Cavs is this guy. It's Kyrie Irving.
Which is funny because usually whenever somebody shows his hot takes, there's usually somebody that shows the receipts from one of the times that he can be very hypocritical and talk. And there's definitely been a lot of takes where he criticizes LeBron James for doing something, and then all of a sudden, when he says that Michael Jordan never does anything like that, somebody's just like, okay, here you go, here's that, and like they show Michael Jordan doing the exact same thing, and he has no quarrels with that whatsoever. One of the best people that actually does that is Matt Mamba, and I'll talk about it. I'll show you some of his stuff in a little bit here, but let me get to the ones that I really want to talk about here. Some of the worst hot takes for Skip Bayless. Oh, this is a good one. This is one that some of you may remember. This was on First Take with Stephen A. Smith on November 14th, 2013, when Michael Jordan named his all-time best pickup team, which included Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Akeem Olajuwon, James Worthy, I think, and Scottie Pippen. And the thing says Skip Bayless picks the best NBA scrub team, and if you know what is about to happen here, you know what's about to happen here. This is a classic.
For your life, pick your 5.
You ready? Go ahead. Okay, I told you, I only need really one player on my team.
Now, I want you to listen to Stephen A. Smith as soon as this list gets put out, and he's just... that's the great thing about Stephen A. Smith, is that he knows when to call out bullshit when it matters the most. And this is one of those moments where he called it out right away, and leads to one of the greatest moments in sports media history.
Team, and that's Michael Jordan. So, voila, here's my team, and I'm going to have...
Now, first off, he has Michael Jordan at the top of the list, and then he has all these guys here, which I'm gonna let Stephen A. read the list for you, because it's just beautiful the way he says it.
You read the names for me. Could you read my 4 teammates?
Oh my God!
I just, in honor of you, I want you to read the 4.
Tiago Splitter, Russo Brothers, Kwame Brown, and Slava Medvedenko.
So, I feel like he did this to troll Stephen A. I mean, there's no way anybody with a brain can look at this list and say, this is legitimate. Tiago Splitter, Rasho Nesterovic, Kwame Brown, Stanislav Medvedenko, and Michael Jordan. Like, it's hilarious, because there's always that argument, like, well, there was always that argument back in the day where LeBron James is the only person on a team that really needs to win the game for you. And, like, Skip Bayless literally has a list that has Michael Jordan with more career points per game than any of the other guys together. Like, Michael Jordan's at 30.1, Tiago Splitter 8.3, 6.8, 6.6, 5.3. I've got a calculator here. Let me just see here. Let's see. 8.3, 6.8, 6.6, 5.3. 27 in total. All 4 of them have less than Michael Jordan's career points per game in points. Skip Bayless clearly was trolling everybody on the set, not just Stephen A., but also Maria. Why can't I remember her name? Why can't I remember her last name? I'm real bad with. You can tell I'm really bad with names here. I hate that I have to do this, because I should know who this person is. There's Maria. Not even the person I'm thinking of. Good Lord. I'm thinking of the person from NBC who's on the NFL on NBC. Maria Taylor, that's the one I'm thinking of. I thought that was her in the clip, but apparently I don't think she ever did First Take. But if that's not her, it's got to be Carrie Champion then. Which, I don't know. I thought Maria Taylor did it at some points, but no, that was Kerry Champion in that clip there. So I apologize for that, but still, I feel like Skip Bayless did that to troll these people because like no one can look at a list like this and say that this is legitimate. I'm just saying. But let's go on to another one here. I'm trying to find the one where like he was bad at picking NFL prospects to become the next big thing. He was high on Tim Tebow, and of course he was. Oh, it's the very next clip in this compilation here. So, okay. So, like I said, he would usually go after the prospects that didn't turn out well, like most notably Tim Tebow. But he loved Johnny Manziel, and when Johnny Manziel was in the NFL draft and he fell all the way to the Cleveland Browns, he proudly went on First Take the following day after the first round and made these proclamations.
9 National Football League teams that needed a quarterback last night passed on Johnny Manziel, starting with the Houston Texans, who will forever regret passing on Johnny Manziel.
No, they didn't. I mean, they went to the playoffs several years after this. And they've had a couple of promising first-round quarterbacks, Deshaun Watson, who, of course, didn't really pan out as well as they thought, and C.J. Stroud's doing pretty good right now. So, yeah, let's strike one on you, Skip.
And in a minute, I will go right down the list of teams that will forever regret passing on Johnny Manziel.
No, they didn't.
Who pretty soon will change football life in Cleveland, Ohio.
No, they didn't. He may have changed the perception of how the Cleveland Browns pick their quarterbacks going forward, but he certainly didn't change it the way you think he did, Skip.
One day, I am predicting, Johnny Manziel will become even bigger in the city of Cleveland.
No, he didn't. And I want you to listen to what he says next, because remember what I said about him hating on LeBron James? Well,
than his buddy and business partner LeBron James ever was in this.
Like, LeBron James wasn't even in the conversation. This is the NFL. We're not talking about the NBA here. Like, you could tell how much he just hates LeBron James so much. When we get to the Matt Mamba stuff, like, there's even more out there where he, like Aaron Rodgers getting injured, and all of a sudden he decides to bring up LeBron James there too. But we'll get to that one a little bit later on here. But let's go ahead and finish his brilliant proclamation about how the Cleveland Browns are going to make the NFL completely regret passing on Johnny Manziel.
The city of Cleveland. Luke Walton was merely...
Oh, that was it. It was pretty much over for there. But yeah, you get the idea. That was the crowning achievement of what the hell were you thinking when you said this? But, like, he went out, like, his whole love for Johnny Manziel was just, like, him and Tim Tebow, it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing that he really thought that was good, is that he was really going to be the next big thing in Cleveland. And yeah, like, it's funny when you look back at those NFL draft videos on NFL Throwback and you see, like, them talking about the quarterbacks there. They were gaga on the program. They were crazy about whenever, Brady Quinn, like when Brady Quinn was in the 2007 NFL draft, everyone was just like, what about Brady Quinn? Or there was one year where it's just like, what about Jim Clausen? What about what about Johnny Manziel? What about them? What have they gone on to do ever since they got drafted? Nothing whatsoever. I mean, it's amazing, really. But here's the guy I was talking about, Matt Mamba, who I found online, I found on YouTube a couple years ago, and he's really funny. He delves into a lot. I found it mostly because of his Skip Bayless compilations, which a lot of them, unfortunately, have been taken down. I think because of copyrights. But let me see if I can find the one. There's one in particular I want to bring up where he mentions where Aaron Rodgers basically. It was around when Aaron Rodgers got injured, and Skip Bayless decided to, of all things, to bring up LeBron James in that conversation, too. He hates Aaron Rodgers, too, by the way. He hates Aaron Rodgers, too, and he definitely shows it in these compilations. I'm actually looking at the video where I could probably find that, what I'm talking about here. History of Skip Bayless' hate for Aaron Rodgers. Part 1, by the way. There's 2 parts to this. Okay, so this was around 2018, I believe. This is when, this was actually the second major injury to Aaron Rodgers in back-to-back seasons. He The year before, he had the broken collarbone, and then this year he was coming back. He played the Bears on Sunday Night Football, gets injured, and gets injured in the first half. Everyone thinks he's done for the season again, and then he comes back and leads the Packers on a comeback against the Bears, who ended up being one of the best defenses in football that year. And so they're talking about this, and this is in Matt Mamba's video where they're talking about it, and I just want you to listen to how much this conversation delves into comparing Aaron Rodgers to Tom Brady, which he hates LeBron James, but Skip Bayless loves him as Tom Brady. And then speaking of LeBron, stay tuned because he's gonna bring that up too.
3 seed in the freaking NFC. So how the heck is Skip gonna deconstruct this?
I tweeted this at this moment that Aaron Rodgers went out of the game early in the second quarter last night. It would have been terrible for the National Football League if Aaron Rodgers had been lost for the season. He is crucial to the ratings.
He's also crucial to your ratings.
And that's a little burn from Matt Mamba, which I like that, which is true. It's like, you know, if he's not bashing on Aaron Rodgers, LeBron James, his ratings just go completely down the toilet. But continuing on.
Accomplished last night against Mitchell Trubisky's 7-point underdog Chicago Bears. So let's not confuse this with Tom Brady coming from 28-3 down in a Super Bowl against the Atlanta Falcons.
There's a difference between comparing Tom Brady's Super Bowl comeback to a crumbling Atlanta Falcons team to Aaron Rodgers coming back against the Bears team in the first game of the regular season. Grasping at straws here, buddy, but no, we're far. But no, it gets crazier from there.
Against the incredible Chicago Bears defense, and with a little bit of reference for the rest of this year, Mitchell Trubisky isn't trash. He's actually a very solid quarterback who's, a lot of people are comparing him to Aaron Rodgers, which I don't get, but
yeah, this was back in 2018. Now that we've had him in Pittsburgh for the last 2 years, I can tell you that Mitch Trubisky ain't no goddamn Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers at his peak, I think, was much better than Tom Brady was. The last couple of years have been very debatable, but I digress. Let's continue.
He's a solid quarterback in his second year, and he's developing, and they're a 3 seed in the playoffs, so clearly he's not completely awful.
Or for that matter, let's not confuse it with what Tom Brady did in the fourth quarter against the Jacksonville defense in Foxborough. What's that?
That was against Blake Bortles.
That was against the best defense in most people's eyes in football.
Did you guys see what he was doing there? He mentions Tom Brady playing against Blake Bortles. He doesn't mention that. But the incredible Jacksonville defense. Aaron Rodgers plays against trash Mitchell Trubisky, but doesn't mention the incredible Bears defense. What is going on here?
All I know...
Yeah. Those are all legitimate good points, and that's what I really like about Matt Mamba, too. Is like
and as we saw him go, if we can watch it again.
Shut up, Skip. Like, that's what I really like about Matt Mamba, is that he's not afraid to call out the hypocrisy of Skip Bayless's arguments here. But I'm trying to get to the point where he talks about LeBron. I think it's coming. It should be coming up around here.
Yeah, it looked to me like when he first got in the car, he gave his head a little shake, and then it looked like he had tears in his eyes. His eyes looked wet to me, like they were glistening, like he thought he was done. So was he more scared than hurt? I don't know. Or is it possible it was LeBron James Memorial, over-the-top, overreaction, melodrama to an injury? Because we've seen LeBron do it a lot of times.
Like, where the hell did that even come from? He's talking about... It starts off with him talking just like, Aaron Rodgers looked like he was crying. It looked like his season was over, which... Yeah, it looked like his season was over, and considering he missed a good chunk of the 2017 season too, yeah, it's hard not to think that your season could be over. But how do we go from that to? I want to talk some shit about LeBron James again. It's just like the two do not connect whatsoever.
Oh my God, he brought LeBron into it, guys. He brought LeBron into it. Let's just get into Aaron Rodgers' shoes in this moment. Aaron Rodgers, who just had to miss almost an entire season last year because of a broken collarbone, in week 1 of the very next year, sprains his knee. He doesn't know how severe this is. It was a sprained knee, but he didn't know how severe this knee injury was. He thinks this could potentially end another season. He's not freaking a rookie quarterback. He's in the final years of his career. I mean, he's still got 4 or 5 years, if he's lucky, left, but
Well, we're now what 6 years into it now, and he's with the Jets. Of course, he didn't play last year, but will he actually play this year? Well, still very much up in the wings. I don't think he'll play a full season with the Jets, but that's a whole other story altogether. So
he has limited years left, and he thinks he has another potentially season-ending injury, and he's making fun of him for, oh my God, he's just bringing it on for the TV. He's just acting melodramatic like LeBron. Are you kidding me, Skip?
Well, let me ask you a question. Why do you only do that with Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Rodgers and LeBron James?
You know what? They remind me of each other, actually. Because, wait a second, I'm glad you brought that up.
Shannon didn't bring it up. You brought it up. He just made a comment back, and you're like, oh, I'm glad you brought up LeBron James, because I wasn't going to. You just brought him up.
yeah, so you get the idea here. Skip Bayless. What makes him so funny is that how wrong and how hypocritical he can really be. And I love the fact that once Shannon Sharp got the hell out of FS1 and they brought in all those other guys to come in and essentially basically just crown all over Skip Bayless, that was just too much for him to handle. It's like the equivalent of that. You ever see that meme picture where like you have the four black guys behind this white couch, and you got this white teenage girl there, and then you got like the Braziers logo on the side there, like you're about to watch some kind of porn or something like that. That's what it felt like for Skip. That's what it feels like for Skip Bayless. Except Skip Bayless is the teenage girl in that scenario, and then Richard Sherman, Michael Urban, and Marshawn. What was it, Marshawn Lynch or Keyshawn Johnson? I'm sorry, it's not Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn Lynch is over at Amazon, but you get the idea of what I'm trying to talk about here. Like it felt like as soon as they went to all that round table format, this sucker was pretty much dead at this point. But so I wanted to bring that up, and go check out Matt Mumba's stuff, man. It's actually really, really funny stuff here, and I do recommend checking it out. But yeah, Skip Bayless potentially out by the end of the summer, and that could be very, very interesting. Of where he goes from there, because I don't know where else he could possibly go after this point. I mean, there's also that rumbling about Stephen A. Smith potentially leaving ESPN for like a massive free agent deal with another network, but only time will tell on that front. But so with that said, let's go ahead and get to our next news story. Hopefully not as long as that last story. Good Lord, I just realized we went 20 whole minutes talking about Skip Bayless, but I promise these next stories will not be as long, but we can get these pretty quickly. The Madonna biopic is reportedly back in the works again. There was a Madonna biopic at Universal that fell through last January, but now it's apparently coming back into production again. I've got the story here from the Hollywood Reporter. Madonna's biopic is back in the works nearly a year and a half after news broke that it wasn't moving forward. The film about the singer's life, which was set to chronicle her decades-long career, was originally set at Universal Pictures, but plans fell through in January 2023. In a new Instagram post, Madonna shared a compilation of photos of her working against the typewriter with an array of papers around her. In one of those shots, a potential title, "Who's That Girl?", a nod to her 1987 song and film of the same name, is seen on the first page of what looks like a script. Another glimpse at the script reads, "Rewrites by Madonna and ECW," seemingly referring to secretary writer Erin Cressida Wilson, who was brought onto the project after Diablo Cody had to step away from it. Amy Pascal was set to produce the movie originally. "I need a lot of bands to make this okay," she captioned the post on Instagram. When the project was shut down, a source told The Hollywood Reporter that development was always a struggle for the movie and that many drafts of the script were always over 180 pages. There were conversations about splitting the movie in two or making it a miniseries, but that never planned out. Madonna was set to direct the biopic. Julie Garner was the frontrunner to play the legendary artist after a long audition process that saw many stars including Florence Pugh, Odessa Young, and Alexa Demi vying for the lead role. The hopefuls participated in intense and sometimes 11-hour choreography sessions with Madonna's choreographer and the artist herself. It is unknown if Universal is still attached to the project. I mean, a Madonna biopic seems like a good idea, and I'm hoping that these rewrites here are so that Madonna can actually tell the story, tell the real story. Like, that's been my biggest problem with a lot of these musical biopics we've been getting as of late, is that they want to tell a story that's mostly safe and marketable. They don't want to delve into the darker elements of these people's lives, and it really hurts the enjoyment of those films in general. So I'm hoping that the reason why the script didn't move forward the first time was because they're delving more into that. Like, I want to believe that Madonna, who has been known to be very controversial in her entire career, that's what made her name, and like that she wasn't afraid to go all in. Like, I'm hoping that this is the case here, and I'm really curious to see what they'll do, if they have to start from scratch or they just go from where they started before, because they had somebody already pretty much lined up to take on the role of Julia Gardner. But I don't know. It's something interesting to keep a close ear on, and hopefully it actually goes through here. Hopefully we actually get a really good biopic out of this. But splitting the movie in two probably wouldn't work for Madonna. Michael Jackson, I think, deserves a movie that needs to be split into two, but we all know that's not going to happen. But I digress. So that's the story about Madonna. Let's go ahead and move on to our technically fourth story, because we started off the show with a story. But here's story number 4. Speaking of people who came crawling back to where they once belonged, they didn't really crawl back here, but Marvel. This was a pretty big, shocking story, because it looked like it was pretty much all but secure that Sean Levy was going to come in and direct the Avengers movies, with all the high buzz building on Deadpool and Wolverine. But, just when you thought they were out, Kevin Feige's pulling them back in. Joe and Anthony Russo are coming back to direct the next 2 Avengers movies. According to The Hollywood Reporter, the Russo brothers are in early talks to return to Marvel Studios to direct not just one, but the next 2 Avengers movies. The hiring ends a month-long high-stakes search by the studio for filmmakers to oversee the 5th and 6th Avengers movies. Multiple names were in contention, including, as I mentioned, Deadpool and Wolverine director Sean Levy, who was offered the gig. Sources say the talks are in early stages. The move also marks a homecoming for the Russos, who jumped from the world of TV comedy on shows like Arrested Development and Community to blockbuster movies a decade ago with Captain America: The Winter Soldier. In total, they've directed 4 of Marvel's biggest and best-regarded movies, including Civil War, Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame. Combined, their Marvel films grossed $6.6 billion, with Endgame standing as the number 2 movie of all time, grossing $2.79 billion globally. In the years since, they have become mega producers via their AGBO banner, producing Best Picture winners Everything Everywhere All at Once, and pricey titles such as Amazon's Citadel and Netflix's Extraction movies. As director, after becoming box office kings as Marvel, they've struck to streaming titles that did not reach the critical and commercial heights of their Marvel work, directing the Tom Holland crime drama Cherry for Apple and the big-budget action movie The Gray Man at Netflix. They also directed the upcoming sci-fi adventure The Electric State for Netflix. The 5th Avengers movie was previously titled Avengers: The Kang Dynasty and was set to star Jonathan Majors as time-traveling villain Kane, but Marvel cut ties with the actor after he was convicted of assault and harassment in December. Shang-Chi and the Legend of Ten Rings director Destin Daniel Cretton was once attached to direct Kang Dynasty, but he departed a month before Major's conviction. The feature is expected to get a new name and a new focus. The 6th Avengers film is Secret Wars, which is a storyline the Russos have been long talking about wanting to adapt. A pair of 1980s comic book series focuses on all-power antagonist known as the Beyonder, who is the first installment pitted Marvel's heroes and villains against each other for a planet known as Battleworld. A 2015 revival served as the climax to writer Jonathan Hickman's own multiverse saga, which has been referenced in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. In Hickman's Secret Wars, all of Marvel's multiverses are destroyed, with remnants surviving of a single planet ruled by the villain Doctor Doom. Avengers 5 is set for May 1st, 2026. Secret Wars is set for May 7th, 2027. So really, this is not that big of a surprise to see the Russos coming back here. It's a surprise, I think, that they got to come back after they were really looking at Sean Levy potentially coming in here to take on those films. But I mean, you got to stick with the guys that have made you who you are. I mean, this isn't like bringing J.J. Abrams back for Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker after The Last Jedi didn't do so well. I mean, no, this is not that at all. This is completely different, because this is not that. You're bringing in these directors who have proven they have been able to move from the world of television and become these great directors, creating these movies that have become the most acclaimed and most well-known movies in the series. I mean, what they did with Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame is still absolutely incredible. And the fact that they're bringing back the same guys that gave us the most memorable moments in recent movie history. I mean, Avengers Endgame, the final climax, is just one of the great movie experiences I remember having, going to see it in the theater. I mean, yeah, it's not really surprising that they're bringing them back here. The only thing I'm really interested in to see what happens is, where do they take it from here? I mean, where do they really go after the events of Endgame? And I don't know much about Secret Wars in general, but what I'm really looking forward to seeing them do, I'm really looking forward to seeing where they go with it. I just hope they don't make critical mistakes. Like I keep hearing they're trying to bring back Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, which you really can't do that unless it's going to be in the past. Like, it can't be somebody from now, in the current timeline of the MCU, because Robert Downey Jr.'s character is dead in those movies. If you want to bring it back from somebody in the past, I think that works out fine, but I just hope it doesn't go down that route where they retcon his death and like, oh, he never really died, which I really don't think these guys are that stupid enough to really do that. I really don't think anybody at Marvel Studios is really thinking that that's going to be a good idea to go ahead and do something like that, which you never know, but I'm hoping but I really have a lot of good hope for these next Avengers movies. I'm really excited to see where they go from there. So anyway, let's go ahead and move on to our next story. Previously on 24. I apologize for that. 24 is for the TV series, of course, with Kiefer Sutherland. They were talking about doing a movie right at the peak of the show's popularity. They never went through it. It was actually around the time, I think, when the Simpsons movie came out, when they were first talking about it. But the project got pushed aside because the popularity of the show had dwindled down. There's been some attempts to try to reboot the series for a long period of time, and they had a couple attempts that didn't really go that well, but a TV series, I should say. I think I said movies, but what I'm trying to bring up here is that there is a 24 movie now in early development at 20th Century Fox, or 20th Century Studios, I should say. I've got the story here from Variety. A film adaptation of the popular TV series 24 is in early development at 20th Century Studios. Imagine Entertainment co-founder Brian Grazer teased the project during an appearance on MSNBC's Squawk Box in June. This is a quote from him. Imagine has always played in that zone where there is a high probability chance that we'll be successful in movie theaters. It's great for us because we've built over 30 years, over 100 different projects and brands, whether it's Backdraft, which I'm not going to do today with Glenn Powell. I guess that's happening now, which I didn't really see any other news stories about it, but there it is right there. But yeah, Glenn Powell's apparently going to remake Backdraft, or whether it's 24, a movie that we're going to do in a very interesting way with Disney and Fox. Grazer also spoke to Hollywood's current outlook on selecting already established IPs with a high level of awareness, adding, "These formats of the late 90s and 2000s have been very important because the streamers or studios are right now even more of risk averse." 24, created by Joel Surnow and Robert Cochran for Fox, originally ran for 9 seasons between 2001 and 2014, and spawned a television film called Redemption in 2008. Kiefer Sutherland stars as Jack Bauer, an agent from the U.S. government fictitious counter-terrorist unit. Each season depicts 24 hours in real time. The series received 68 Emmy nominations during its run, earning 20 wins, including Outstanding Drama Series and Lead Actor for Sutherland in 2006. At this early stage, there are no plot developments available, or no word yet on if Sutherland will return for the film. 20th Century declined to comment. I think at this point, if Kiefer Sutherland's going to return, it's going to be in a more higher power position than he was on the TV show. I think if you're going to do a new 24 storyline here, you got to start from scratch. And as far as 24 is concerned, it's a show that I do really remember. I remember being on the air. I remember it was being a big deal. My dad used to watch it all the time on TV, and I never watched the show in full. I knew about it. I just never really got a chance to watch a full episode in general. But it's just, I mean, but I never heard anything bad about it per se. I do think that later down the road it did get a bad rap. I did watch the 24 reboot they tried to do after the Super Bowl. What was it, 24 Redemption? I think it was. No, Redemption was the movie. What was the name of the 24? It had Corey Hawkins in it from Straight Outta Compton. That wasn't Live Another Day, was it? No, that was their 24 Legacy was what I'm thinking of. 24 Legacy, and it was a show that only lasted one season. It had Corey Hawkins in it. It had Miranda Otto, Anna Diop, had Jimmy Smits, Joe McRaney, and I saw the first episode after the Super Bowl, but I think when they stepped away from the whole idea of it taking place in real time over the course of specific hours, I think that's when the popularity of the show really began to die down, because they started doing that with 24 Live Another Day, where it was basically just, instead of it being just a 24-hour period, it's just 12-hour time jumps between the episodes, and I think it really does hurt the ebb and flow when you step away from what your whole dynamic of the show was supposed to be. It's supposed to be set in real time. It's supposed to take place over the course of 24 hours in a day. And I don't know how that's going to translate into a movie in general, but I'd be curious to see where that goes from there. But But like I said, if Kiefer Sutherland was going to come back for 24, I would expect him to be in a much higher power position than he was than he was in the original series. Maybe not to the levels of like a president or something, because we have designated survivor for that. But yeah, so 24 potential movie coming out soon. Could be interesting to see how that transpires. So let's go ahead and move on to our next story. So Anna Faris has been making some news this week. Earlier in the week, she was talking about a potential House Bunny 2 movie, which really, at this point, there's no real... It's my thing with comedy sequels after a certain amount of time. It's just like, at this point, you really don't want to go back into that realm again, unless you have a really good script to work with. She was talking about a sequel potentially with her starring as a CIA interrogator in the sequel. Which, I don't know. I don't think that would be a really good idea in general. But then again, I'm not the one making the decisions in Hollywood. But what she is involved with is with the Scary Movie franchise, and we just had in the last couple months the announcement of a reboot series in the works at Paramount and Miramax. And Anna Faris was in the news yesterday for some things she said about the upcoming installment. This is from the Hollywood Reporter. Anna Faris has a few non-negotiables if she was to reprise her role as Cindy Campbell for this new Scary Movie installment. Paramount and Miramax announced earlier this year that they're making another film after director Malcolm D. Lee's Scary Movie 5 in 2013. The actress who played Cindy Campbell in the franchise's first 4 films from 2000 to 2006 recently shared with People magazine what it would take for her to join the upcoming movie. Well, money, Faris said with a laugh, but she would like to reprise her role if she also knew that her former co-star, Regina Hall, who plays her best friend Brenda, was returning as well. I would love to work with Regina again. I just love her so much. The My Spy, the Eternal City actress added. She was just in the new sequel to My Spy that came out on Amazon this week. We would make each other giggle all day long. Regina Hall would be my answer and money, but mostly all Regina. Faris later explained that the impact those films on her life and her career, notably since she rose to fame following the first installment in 2000. I love the franchise. I was like my boot camp, my beginnings. If there is a high school comparison from my growth experience, those 4 movies played an important role in my life in terms of teaching me how to use props, teaching me how to fall, how to get hit in the head, how to hold chiclets in my mouth, and then spit them out with blood at a convenient time for the camera. The film series mainly focuses on spoofing horror films. Neither Faris nor Hall appeared in Scary Movie 5, which stars Simon Rex and Ashley Tisdale. Which Simon Rex didn't reprise his role from Scary Movie 3 in that film either, and Scary Movie 5. We just don't want to talk about that film in general, because for me, that film doesn't exist anymore. Which, it would not be that hard to get Anna Faris and Regina Hall to come back for this, especially if it's a new installment in the series. They're the rocks that made those movies, even the lesser Scary Movie films. They're the rocks that held that movie together. They were very funny on screen. They were a lot of fun to watch in those movies, and I really hope they don't go down the route where they have a completely different cast in general. I mean, if you can get the people from Scream to come back for the Scream sequels, you can more than be willing to get Anna Faris and Regina Hall back for Scary Movie 5, for the next Scary Movie film. I mean, it wouldn't be that hard to do, and they'd be really stupid if they somehow decided not to go ahead and get them. And and it's just, I'm hoping that the Naked Gun movie is a perfect way to get back to the real good spoof movies and not the god-awful Friedberg Seltzer movies where, because of those films, every spoof movie that came out around that time was essentially just the same, just wrapped up in there. It's just like, don't worry about those because it's just the same type of movies again. Ooh, it's just another Friedberg Seltzer movie, and no, it was nothing like that. But yeah, I've talked about how much I like the Zucker Scary Movie films more than the Wayans Brothers ones, and I'm just really curious to see what's going to happen there. I think it's going to start off with that Naked Gun reboot they're doing. Let's see how that transpires. If they stick to what made the Naked Gun movie so special, and it turns out to be a really good movie, I think we're in for a real treat of what they could do with a new Scary Movie film. But it's just a wait and see situation right now for that. So, all right, so let's go ahead and move on to another news story, and this is another one of those worldwide global stories that made me kind of laugh at the same time, seeing what it eventually led to. So you might remember about a year ago, if you watched any sports on television, you would see a commercial for a company called Crowdstrike. And the one I always remember is the one with the Trojan horse, where they bring out a Crowdstrike representative. And Crowdstrike's whole thing is that it's supposed to protect your data and all that. And then the Trojan horse gets pushed off, and you see all the Trojans underneath there about to get destroyed by this horse here, which I've got a little fun video I made last year.
At Crowdstrike, we monitor trillions of cyber events to detect threats and prevent breaches before they happen, to keep your business from becoming history. We stop cyber attacks. We stop breaches. We stop a lot of bad things from happening. Crowdstrike. Protection that powers you. It powers you.
And then everybody died. The end. But I bring this up because CrowdStrike was at the that was made for parody sake. But yeah, CrowdStrike is protection that powers you. But apparently, it's not enough to it's not enough to protect itself from a huge global outage that happened over the weekend. And I think you know I think a lot of you know what I'm talking about. So this past Friday, American cybersecurity company CrowdStrike distributed a faulty update to its security software that caused an estimated 8.5 million computers running Microsoft Windows to crash and left them unable to properly restart. This caused what has been called the largest outage in the history of information technology and historic in scale. The outage disrupted businesses and governments around the world, affected industries including airlines, airports, which I'll show you that in a second, banks, hotels, hospitals, manufacturing, stock markets, broadcasting, and more. Governmental services such as emergency services and websites were also heavily affected. The worldwide financial damage has been estimated to be ranged in the billions of dollars, and within hours the error was discovered and the fix was released. But because affected computers had to be manually fixed, outages lingered on many surfaces. So, yeah, CrowdStrike, it may be protection that powers you, but it's not enough to stop them from giving you faulty updates that completely destroys almost the world in general. And I really didn't know the true scope and scale of this whole thing until I found a video from Adam the Woo, who I've talked about before in some other videos in the past. But on this Daily Woo channel, there was a video called "My Global Shutdown Airport Experience: Modified Delta Flight Orlando to Pittsburgh," and he shows in the beginning what exactly happened at the time when this was just beginning. And I'll go ahead and play a little bit of that clip there. I gotta go back to the beginning here. Here we go.
Welcome everyone. Adam the Woo here. As the recording of this TGIF, it is Friday, July 19th.
So he's in the Delta Sky Club, and the video starts off with him by the elevator, where you can see him in the mirror. But if you look to the right, you see the legendary Windows blue screen of death. You know what I'm talking about here, and you think that's going to be like a one-time thing here. It's just like, oh, it's just that one little area. But no, as the video goes on, you see that it's all over the place in general.
2024 cheers. I just got off the elevator really early. I checked out a hotel here, the Orlando International Airport. I stayed in the Hyatt. There is
I should say, though, I've been to the Orlando International Airport, and that idea of having the hotel next to the airport has got to be one of the most convenient ideas I think I've ever seen. And, you know, around here in Pittsburgh, we've got the Pittsburgh International Airport doing, like, a remodel right now. I'm kind of surprised that no other airports have really taken that strategy to put the hotel and airport literally right next to each other, which I think Pittsburgh International does have a hotel next to the airport, but it's not as connected as it is in Orlando. Like, the hotel is literally within the airport. But I just thought that was kind of amusing to bring up here. But continuing on.
A global outage. There is a worldwide outage. So none of the information that we'll be showing throughout the airport is going to be accurate. This is in a recovery mode. It will not load. So anything that they're saying, anything that's on the Delta app, etc., is not going to be correct.
When I first heard about this, all I thought to myself was, well, that episode of South Park is like, did you unplug the cord? Did you unplug the cord and then plug it back in? And then all of a sudden, what happened? And then all of a sudden, what happens? Everything goes back to normal. If you've seen that South Park episode I'm talking about, where the internet goes out all over the world, and Kyle was the only one to think, you know, what would happen if we just unplug it and then plug it back in? Like, I thought to myself, why didn't they just do that to begin with? But obviously, it was not that at all. But let's see. Let me see if I can go to. Here we go.
I don't know if I'm going to Pittsburgh. I might go home. To just regroup. In fact, they have closed off the Sky Lounge. There is a line. There's a gentleman there stopping anyone from going up there. So they told me I cannot.
And there's a lot of lines like building up for these different things.
Line.
Like Starbucks has a huge line.
Here I got my piping hot caffeinated beverage. It is a mess. Even the Nathan's hot dogs at 7 a.m. is a massive line. No one's going anywhere. This is the freaking Starbucks line.
Yeah,
Starbucks.
this line. Keep in mind, the Starbucks, if you watch this video, you see it's all the way towards where it says, Delta 70 to 79, and the Nathan's hot dog is right there. The Starbucks is all the way in the back, and Adam the Woo's all the way out in the middle of, like, the area where the window's at. Like, it's a long line. I think because these companies have to use, obviously these companies can't use the computers because it's not working, so you essentially I think you have to pay with cash at this point, which apparently is becoming more of a dying thing to do. I mean, dude, like, people rather pay with their cards. Why not credit cards or debit cards or just the apps in general? But you can't do that when the entire world doesn't have internet to work with.
Is over there. This is like an hour wait to get a cup of coffee.
An hour's wait to get a cup of coffee. I mean, maybe it's because I don't like coffee all that much, but there's no way I'm wasting an hour getting coffee at Starbucks of all places.
Welcome, everyone. Adam the Woo here. It is truly going to be a day.
Let's see if I can
It's
find
on the boards on the airport or on the app, because none of this was correct.
So he's showing, like, the board of, like, all the flights coming in, and apparently they're all incorrect. I'm trying to find where he's walking through the terminals, and up in the ceiling there's the digital signs, and one of them was literally saying, like, was literally showing the blue screen of death. I'm seeing if I can find that.
Even though it does say a lot of cancellation. In fact, I don't even see the 8 a.m. to Atlanta up there. I don't even see it up there. And even if it was up there, it wouldn't matter anyway, because computers are down. You can see.
Service to New York to LaGuardia Airport. The 83, this flight has been canceled. Please proceed to Delta Dash.
Cancels. That's to New York. Now they're
I'm trying to see if I can find it here somewhere, but
see what the flight status is looking like here on the board.
and he's showing another board inside the airport, and, like, two screens are black, and the one in the middle is the one with the blue screen of death. And I think this is still in Orlando too.
Oh, yeah, not really getting a lot of info.
Let me see if I can find the one that I was trying to talk about before.
Not that board. Oh, wait.
Yeah, I'm still trying to find it. This is like a long video too. It's like 44 minutes long. If you want to watch the full video, I'll put a link to it in the description below. But I'm trying to find where he's walking through the terminal, and up in the ceiling, the digital sign has been switched to the blue screen of death. And I see one part here where, like, he's at his gate, and, like, the Delta TV behind him is literally the blue screen of death.
To Atlanta today, and if everything's delayed there, I could get stuck in Atlanta because the way the flight that I rescheduled from last night was, I would land, I'd have about a 30-minute layover before getting on the next flight to go to Pittsburgh. But now with everything delayed, I could just get stuck in Atlanta. So what do I do? Roll of the dice.
Bill and I are here ready to take you to Atlanta. As you know, the rolling delays are going on. I don't even have an airplane at the gate. I would like to encourage you to go and find someplace to sit for a while until I get the airplane here. Once I get on the airplane, Bill and I...
Yeah, while this guy's talking, while the pilot's talking, you see the blue screen of death in the background. Like, it's all over the airports, and it shows when Adam goes to Atlanta, it's all over the TVs there as well.
Wait, where the heck's B? Here we go, right here. B. I'm a B-boy standing in my B-boy stance here, giving my...
This is about 28 minutes into the video here.
Few people, little bottleneck through here. There's 21. I got to get to 28. I got to get there very, very quick.
Is this it?
Not a lot of elbow room through here. Not a lot of elbow room. And it's looking like there's
there's like three. There's like literally 3 screens on a television. Is on the televisions at this Atlanta terminal that are literally the blue screen of death. It's like it's everywhere. Like this was a crazy. It's literally coming up the thing I want to show here, and it's even funnier than that because it's not just the blue screen of death. It's a blue screen But instead of like the recovery thing and like restore my PC, all that type of stuff, no, it's a sad emoji face, and I'm not kidding around when I say this. Like I said, this is about 28 minutes in.
Nothing at all the airports is still down. You see all of them have that recovery screen. Just how Orlando was too. It's all over the place. This might be the greatest song.
Yeah, this is great. Like it's literally a blue screen with a sad face. Like it's just like I'm almost expecting a tear to start coming down from it. It's like it's so ridiculous, and like that was what it was like if you went flying on Friday at the airports. You just had these weird. The digital signs were all like they were just completely not working, and this is a prime example of what that looked like on that day.
I never look at this. Look at that. That sums up the airport situation everywhere right there.
If anything else, it made for funny stuff like that. But unfortunately, that was not the only. Obviously, the airports were not the only places that were really affected by this. Of all things, there was specifically here we go, ESPN, because ESPN they film out of Bristol, Connecticut. They were actually unable to show the morning edition of SportsCenter because of what was going on in general. Not just them, but there was a network TV network, KSHEB TV, which was the NBC station in Kansas City, Missouri, that couldn't do the news, and they had to show the national news through Scripps News. ESPN and ESPN2 had the simulcast Get Up and First Take in place of SportsCenter, and they didn't have their usual on-air graphics or B-roll. Paramount had several of their channels affected, including Nicktoons, Teen Nick, BET Her. A lot of the channels on the Pluto TV service went off the air. MeTV Tunes went off the air for 5 hours. Universal Studios Japan couldn't sell tickets to their theme parks. Vodafone experienced outages. A lot of French TV channels went out. Amazon, eBay, Google Cloud, Instagram, a lot of places were affected by this. It was a crazy situation. And, 7-Eleven and Speedway couldn't do anything either. Like, their locations were still running on software, but a lot of their stores were unable to accept credit or debit transactions because of what was going on. So it was a pretty crazy situation in general. And in fact, even Dick's Sporting Goods had to close stores down because of what was happening. And they had to shut down the website, too, because there was temporary outages there. So it was an incredibly bizarre situation that happened this weekend. It made for a lot of interesting situations and scenarios that happen all over the world. I'm just going to say that. But so that's what happened with the Crowdstrike situation. So let's go ahead and move on to our next story that we have here, and that was at the All-Star Game. Well, technically, this didn't happen at the All-Star Game. This happened at the Home Run Derby the night before the All-Star Game. But I think you know what I'm talking about here. Let's talk about what happened with Ingrid Andress. Now, if you don't know who she is, I'm right there with you, because I didn't know too much about her before this past week. She's a country music singer. She's done songs like More Hearts Than Mine, The Stranger, Wishful Drinking, Ladyline, Good Person. She did a lot of stuff she did some songs with Charlie XCX. But she was also on The Sing Off, a show that was on NBC for a couple of years that I thought was pretty good. That's probably where I remember her for, but honestly, I don't remember too much about her. And she got to sing the national anthem at the Home Run Derby, and she faced a lot of criticism and faced a lot of controversy for what happened. And this is my first time actually listening to this national anthem presentation, which obviously is the reason why we're here. But apparently, it's the worst national anthem ever sung. So this is my first time listening to this. This isn't like some joke or anything. I hadn't heard this until now. So I'm going to listen to a little bit of this here. So let's go ahead and listen to Ingrid Andress singing the national anthem and see if it's as bad as it really is.
Ingrid Andress.
She even has this look on her face like she has no idea where she is right now. Maybe I know that some singers usually like to look down at the microphone first before they start their performances, to build the drama up. But this didn't look like that at all. This looked like somebody who had no idea where she was at this point. But let's listen in.
Oh, say, can you see by
okay, it didn't start off bad at first. It didn't sound bad at first, but then the moment when she started going, "What so proudly we hail," that's the point where it's just like, okay, now I can see what everyone's talking about.
Like, what so proudly we hail by the twilight's last spring, with broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming.
Okay. Now I can see what everyone's talking about, because at the beginning it didn't sound so bad. The moment when she went into "What so proudly we hail," that's where the shit literally began to hit the fan, and I can really see how this could be considered one of the worst national anthems ever. But let's continue on. Maybe it gets better by the end.
And the rockets sprinkle the
I should not be laughing at this, but I'm sorry. How can you not laugh when when that happens? It's just like.
and the rockets sprinkling the bombs burst.
She sounds like a woman she sounds like somebody that's going through puberty. Like, it doesn't sound like she's drunk. It sounds like somebody who's going through puberty at the worst possible time. Like, you ever remember that scene from The Simpsons where it flashes back to Homer as a kid, and he's got like that beautiful singing voice? It's just like, "Oh, hear the angels sing," and Grandpa's just like, "That boy's gonna make me a millionaire," and then gets to the part where he goes like, "Oh, night divine," and Homer's just like, "Oh, night divine." It's like, hey, my voice changed. And then he just goes into the rest of the song, and Grandpa's just like, "God darn it." Like, that's what this sounds like to me. And like, I think it makes it even more hilarious when the fireworks start going off at that point. Okay. Even the fireworks are just completely. The fireworks just look like they go limp as soon as they get lit up like that. And this is an indoor stadium too. Keep in mind, it's just like this whole. It's not just her that's really screwing up. Apparently, it's the whole. This whole performance in general is just completely off the rails here. But give the crowd some credit. They told her to keep going. Like, you got to power through this, and she made it all the way through. So you got to give her credit for that. She didn't quit. At least I think that they're going along with it. Yeah, I don't know exactly if they were. Now that I'm listening to it for the first time, I really don't know if they're actually going along with it, or just telling her to just wrap it up, just get it over with, man. Like, but that was pretty bad. That was about as bad as everyone made it out to be, and as we later found out, the performance was basically happened that she was very intoxicated during the performance. I mean, she's in Texas. I mean, there's a lot of things in Texas you can do that you can get intoxicated pretty quickly. But she said she's planning to check into a rehab facility, and like I said, you got to give her credit for going through it all. Like, going through it, like she came out and was very earnest about it. Like, she told the truth. I mean, I really think somebody should have looked at her at first and said, "You're not physically prepared for this situation right now. We're just going to go ahead and let somebody else do it." But no, they just said, "Power through. You're the country music singer." But, so yeah, that was pretty bad. But, speaking of, but there has been but let me just say, I'll give it to her, but I got to say, she powered through. She did it. she came out and admitted that she probably shouldn't have been out there. But there have definitely been a lot more. Like that one was more unbearable, but there have been some more fun national anthem misfires in general, and I think everyone knows which ones I'm talking about. One of the most notable ones, probably the funniest one in general, is Carl Lewis when he performed the national anthem at an NBA game in the 1980s, and is presented very well with the commentary from ESPN's own Charlie Steiner. Okay, this is not. They're not showing the clip here. I'm trying to find the. I think it's this next one here. They started playing the clip, and then all of a sudden they went to a clip from The Dark Knight Rises, where Bane blows up Heinz Field, which I was there for that, by the way. If you want to see the video where I talk about that, I'll leave a link to that in the corner. But anyway, let's go to the actual video here. Here, this is the one featuring Charlie Steiner.
Dirty Harry said in one of his movies that a man's got to know his limitations. Carl Lewis apparently didn't see the movie. If his rendition of the Star Spangled Banner prior to the Nets-Bulls game last...
Charlie Steiner sounds like he's drunk too, but at least he's not singing the national anthem, man. But
tonight is any indication. As a public service, we present now only excerpts. Ladies and gentlemen, our national anthem.
All right, are we all ready?
It's never a good sign when anyone starts off a performance by going, "Are you ready?" "Are you ready?" and then just stalls for time here. That's not usually a good sign going forward.
Oh, say, can you see? And the Rockets, I'll make up for it now.
I'll make up for it, don't worry.
Oh, the land of the free.
I mean, that's one of those moments where it's just like, it's so hilarious. It's so right on the cusp. Like, that's something that was not supposed to happen in any way, shape, or form. That wasn't like planned or anything. That was real. And so was Charlie Steiner's reaction.
Written by Francis Scott Off-Key. Those were last night's lowlights.
God, Charlie Steiner. Charlie Steiner's one of those guys that whenever he laughs, you feel like it's real. Like, even when it's something not really that funny, it's just like he's just so you can tell that his laughs are not fake in any way, shape, or form. That's a real, earnest laugh right there. Written by Francis Scott Off-Key. And there have been a lot of other notable national anthem performance fails. Of course, another one that everyone remembers was when Roseanne Barr did this in 1990 at a San Diego Padres game. Which, you know what, for Ingrid Andress, you know what? It was much better than what Roseanne was trying to do. I don't know what the hell Roseanne was thinking about when she did this, but it was just like, that's one of those moments that could have that was one of those early moments in her career that could have easily destroyed her career earlier than the thing that actually did destroy her career later on down the road. But even the crowd's just like, is this supposed to be part of a joke or something? Like, what the hell's going on here? Of course, she grabbed her crotch and then went to spit on the pitcher's mound. yeah, nobody really knew what the hell she was thinking about back then, but that's usually seen as one of those notoriously bad performances of the national anthem. But let's be honest here. The real national anthem, the one that we all is that one that we all remember the most, is when this little ditty right here. That is, of course, the Naked Gun from the Files of Police Squad. And, of course, when I'm going to bring up national anthems and completely butchering them, how can you not bring up one of the funniest moments from one of the funniest comedies of all time, if not the funniest comedy of all time? I love the Naked Gun. I just had to bring this up here. Gave proof through the night that we still have a flag. There was I thought a couple years ago that maybe if they tried to do this nowadays, if somebody tried to do this nowadays, people probably would get offended by this. But honestly, this was I think that most people have felt this way too. Like, they listen to the national anthem, but some of them don't really listen to all the lyrics in general. So when you have to be put on the spot, like in this situation, you can't help but be in Frank's situation where he's just like trying to remember the words as much as he can and having to make it up as much as possible. But that's my favorite line from the whole thing. Gave proof through the night that we still had a flag. Now, tell me that should not be our new national anthem. It's one that honestly, tell me that should not be the new national anthem at some point. But I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up because I thought that was very funny, and of course, it fits for what we're trying to talk about here. But so yeah, I wanted to bring that up because of what happened this week with that woman. And for Ingrid Andress, if you're listening out there, which you probably are not, but just in case you are, I wouldn't shake it up. I wouldn't let this ruin your career in general. It was just a bad night. You probably should not have been drinking beforehand, and yeah, it's probably something that you'll regret it now. But hopefully, this will not be something where it becomes too much. I hope this isn't. What I'm trying to say is that I'm hoping that this is not something like an addiction or something. Like, this is something where it ruins her career or anything. I just hope this is just a one-time thing that happened, and it doesn't happen again later on down the road. But you never really know. So. One more thing I want to talk about here. It's nothing related to the news, but I thought it was something kind of amusing to bring up here. This is not related to any news story in particular, but I thought this was kind of amusing to think about when I saw watching these commercials online this week. Doug and Garfield are under the Nickelodeon brand now, but little did you know that long before Garfield became part of Nickelodeon, long before Doug was a part of Nickelodeon as part of the original Nicktoons, Doug and Garfield actually worked together in the past, and you might not know what the hell I'm talking about, but Doug creator Jim Jenkins, who we've talked about Doug on this show several times, as well as on the main channel, he did a bunch of commercials for various products back in the day, and a lot of these commercials back in the day featured a prototype version of Doug. Of course, Doug in the TV series was a high school kid. And in these commercials, they set him up as like a college student. Like, it literally is Doug, except that he's literally marketed as sold as a college student or a teenager. And just take a listen here. And these are commercials for Florida Grape Juice, by the way. These were made in 1989, and I want you to listen very closely and see if you can pick out the familiarity to the narrator in this.
What is but some people think they're more fun than grapefruit juice, which is unfortunate because drinking grapefruit juice is a lot more enjoyable and refreshing than watching pelicans try to land on a dock. Which proves when you go to the store, pass the pelicans and head straight for 100% pure Florida grapefruit juice.
So yeah, that was Garfield. That was Lorenzo Music, who of course is known as the voice of Garfield. He's also the voice of Venkman on the Real Ghostbusters, the original Real Ghostbusters show in the first couple seasons. But there were a couple commercials back in the day where Garfield was doing the voice of commercials with Doug in them. And this was not the first one of those commercials. There was actually several of them, and here's another one.
What does grapefruit juice have in common with a palm tree? They're both grown in Florida. Of course, grapefruit juice doesn't sway in the wind, but it does feel like a cool breeze. Sure, palm trees are cool and refreshing, but grapefruit juice is cool and refreshing and is much better for your health than a palm tree, which is fortunate because grapefruit juice is filled with fun and lively things you could never get from a palm tree. So for a cool, refreshing taste, leave the palm trees on the beach and drink grapefruit juice on the rocks. 100% pure Florida grapefruit juice.
And yeah, it's hard not to look at these commercials and then realize that, hey, that's Doug. I mean, that's literally Doug Funny. And I think it's kind of amusing that Jim Jenkins used this character for a number of different commercials back in the day. Because it wasn't just for Florida Grape Juice. There was also some other commercials that he did that he had this Doug prototype in there. I'm trying to see if I can find the other one. Let me see if I can find it. It was one for, I think it was for the USA Network, where they had Doug as this Doug prototype as one of the mascots for it. All right, I got it right here. This is actually from 1989, even though this particular one is from 91, late 91, when Doug actually was on Nickelodeon at the time. I guess this was an old bumper that USA had from about 2 years ago. And I like how it's even got a prototype version of Pork Chop 2 in there too as well. But you can tell that that's Doug, except this Doug looks a little bit more. He looks a little bit more refined than what he did in the Florida Grapefruit Juice commercial. Like he's got a green and I think pink striped T-shirt. He's wearing like blue pants. His hairs at the top are not as defined as the Doug prototype that was in the grapefruit commercial. So yeah, no real reason to bring this up whatsoever, and I think that's the only. I think that's the only ones that are online there, but I'm pretty sure there's more of them out there. Let me see if I can find something. I think that's all that's available online right now, because when I tried to look up the Jim Jenkins Doug prototypes, that's what it was, the Florida Grape Juice one and the USA Network one. So those might be the only ones that are available online now, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's much more out there. I just thought it was kind of amusing to bring up Doug and Garfield sharing one commercial where Garfield's talking about drinking Florida Grapefruit Juice with this with this teenage adult Doug. Even though he looks like the Doug that we know from the Nickelodeon show, drinking it. But, yeah, nothing in particular specific that made me want to bring that up. I just thought that was kind of amusing to bring up here. But so with that said, let's go ahead and get to some recommendations, because I know I've been here for a long, long time. So let's go ahead and get to the recommendations, and we can get the hell on out of here. So really the big new recommendation this week I can give you is The Fall Guy with Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt. Like I said earlier, it was the movie that Universal thought they'd be smart enough to put this out in theaters as the first big summer release of the season, and the film didn't do well. Not because the film was bad or anything, far from it. The movie was really good, and it's getting a nice looking steelbook this week, a nice retro looking steelbook. The 4K version has the extended cut with it. I think the Blu-ray does as well. Halo Season 2 comes out this week, which is funny because the show just got canceled this week by Paramount+. Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 3 comes out this week, which is notable for having the last appearance by Kevin Conroy as the voice of Batman. And I've seen the clip, and it's more prolific, it's more prolific as you could possibly get. I mean, it's much more deeper than you could possibly imagine. And lastly, we have Risky Business getting a Criterion release this week, which, considering that Barnes & Noble has its Criterion sale going on right now, that's definitely one I'm going to try to get my hands on. I think I'm also going to try to go find Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. I was trying to see if I had it in my collection. As far as I know, I don't have it in my collection, so I'm just assuming that I don't have it. If worst comes to worst, I just end up taking it back and just getting my money back. But I wanted to really focus this segment on an actor who passed away this week, Bob Newhart, who died on, I believe, Thursday, I believe. Thursday was actually it, excuse me. But everyone knows who Bob Newhart is. He was a stand-up comedian known for his deadpan, stammering delivery style. Did a lot of great shows back in the day. The Bob Newhart Show on CBS, Newhart in the 80s. He was in a bunch of movies. Everyone remembers him for Elf, Catch-22, In and Out. He was great in. He was younger viewers will know him as Professor Proton on The Big Bang Theory, which actually got him an Emmy Award for that role. And he was also, I believe, in the Young Sheldon series as well, playing the same character, Arthur Jeffries. But, my memory of him, I think a lot of people's memory of him will always be when you watch the Rescuers movies. I just posted a video yesterday on the main page doing like a little tribute video looking at with my Time About the Movies reviews for the Rescuers and the Rescuers Down Under, and I did that to celebrate his legacy, because now pretty much all the four main names that you remember from those movies, Ava Gabor, George C. Scott, John Candy, and now Bob Newhart have all died. I mean, they're no longer with us anymore. And the Rescuers movies, man. I said the first Rescuers movie was not as great as everyone made it out to be. Was not as great. Maybe I don't think. Maybe we're not as great as I think most people let on. But I mean, those movies are still really enjoyable films. I think they are much better than I gave them credit for. I just saw them again on TV not too long ago. They had like a thing on Freeform showing both movies again. The first movie I think has actually gotten a lot better than what I remember from my original review for it. But I mean, it's a movie where like him, because of course Bob Newhart was Bernard in those movies, and Ava Gabor was also Miss Bianca, and just something about them together made those movies. They were the emotional weight that held the movie together. Like, Bernard was always the superstitious one. Like, he was always, like, whenever he's like trying to climb up ladders or walk up steps, he's always afraid of that 13th step. Like whenever he gets to like a 12th step or something, and then people are just looking at him like, now what? And he's just like, there's 13 steps here, sir. And it's just like it's like people can relate to that type of stuff, and I like the relationship that him and Miss Bianca had in those movies, like Ava Gabor, Bob Newhart, were just so perfect together. And like I love the fact that Miss Bianca wasn't like a typical romance where like they don't like each other at first, and then they have to slowly but surely build their relationship as they went along. There's like an instant connection right away, and they don't really like. It's like, I like the fact that they just seem like a really fun, a really nice little couple to have, is to work together, not just work together, but end up getting together in the long run. They really do hold those movies together and give those movies the emotional lift, more of an emotional lift than you would think they would, especially with the first movie. When Bob Newhart died, I first went to the scene from The Rescuers where they're flying from New York, and you have that great little song, Tomorrow's Another Day. And it's just like, it's hard not to get teary-eyed now, knowing that everyone, that Bernard and Miss Bianca are no longer with us anymore, those actors anymore. And it's really well done. Like, it's a really beautiful looking scene in general. I really didn't realize it until I watched it again on TV not too long ago. That movie has such good animation to it in general. Like, it's like, you could definitely tell that they put a lot of effort into this to make it seem like something that's completely outside the norm of just being a typical talking mouse movie. Like, these movies took a lot of chances with what they could do with that storyline, especially the second one, The Rescuers Down Under, which is still one of the great sequels of all time, one of the most underrated animated films ever made. And it just meant, those movies really were spectacular films, and they're movies that got better with time as time went on. And yeah, I just wanted to bring those up because, of course, Bob Newhart has passed away this week. A great comedy legend, did a lot of stuff, a lot of great stuff in general that will always be remembered through the annals of time. But, I'll always remember him as Bernard and Miss Bianca, and it's great to see that they're now finally together again up in the heavens. So, rest in peace, Bob Newhart. We will indeed miss you and your great work. So on that note, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode of the Reviewing Network Live. So thank you so much for watching. I know it was a very long one, but I felt like it had to be done. It had to be done. So, we do post here every Sunday night, of course. We do on this channel. We always have videos here every day, including the Time About the Movies clipless versions. We do trailer reactions. We put stuff up here every day. If you want to see some of the stuff that we put up, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. If you like what you see here, check out some of the other episodes we've done. Check out our playlist. And also subscribe to the main Reviewing Network channel, where we have more reviews, more Time About the Movies episodes, new ones. New ones get posted every single day, and so on and so forth. So, you get the gist of what I'm talking about here. So thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time, and until then, we are out.